Our presidents Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden defending their versions of world order in rare proximity. Mr. Putin in a speech to the Russian parliament in Moscow. Mr. Biden across the border in neighbouring Poland, bolstering support for NATO and its allies. Or the presence of China's top diplomat Wang Yi in Russia and his stated mission to build relations with Moscow, a sign of the complex and heavyweight variables at play on the eve of this first anniversary of the Ukraine war. To help us unwind today's geopolitical manoeuvring, our correspondents in Moscow, Shanghai and Warsaw are standing by. For more on the Russian president's speech, Stuart Smith joins us live from Moscow. Stuart, as we know, Russia meant to take Ukraine in just a matter of weeks when it first attacked February last year. Well, that clearly has not happened. How is Mr. Putin navigating the very delicate task of justifying this war as it nears its first anniversary?
Well, the focus from the Russian president was to emphasize why he felt this was entirely defensive in its nature, not any sort of aggression started by Moscow, but a response to aggression, not just by Ukraine, but by the United States and NATO in general. He implied to the audience that this was a war, and he used that word war, that was long planned by NATO, that Russia was simply responding to with its special military operation last year. He emphasized that he believed that the Western countries were being hypocritical and evil in their nature. He again repeated the idea that Ukraine's government was not representative of its people, and that both the Ukrainian government and the West more generally would need to be defeated in some form or another through Russia's so-called special military operation. So the justification being that this was no choice but to embark on this course of military action. As Russia so often says, it didn't intend to start any fighting, but it will certainly finish it. You also have to bear in mind that in terms of public pressure, the Russian president is reasonably secure right now. Of course, he does need to remind people the justifications, as does the foreign minister and state television repeatedly. But people at this point are quite clear about the Russian perspective on why this needs to happen. And similarly, there is not a particularly large amount of opposition to what's going on. And so for President Putin, his position is quite clear. And he used this opportunity to thank those that he believed had been helping achieve the changes over the past year. Here's the president speaking earlier.
За своих предков, за будущее детей и внуков, за восстановление исторической справедливости, за воссоединение нашего народа сегодня сражаются бойцы, наши герои. Дорогие друзья, я прошу почтить память наших боевых товарищей, которые отдали жизнь за Россию. Мирных граждан, стариков, женщин, детей, которые погибли под обстрелами от рук неонацистов и карателей.
Stuart, there, of course, Mr. Putin there talking about the reunification of our people. That's his justification most of the time for why he needs to take territory back from Ukraine. Of course, he did mention that he had tried to settle the conflict in the Donbas region peacefully. Did he have anything else to say about annexed territory from Ukraine?
Well, he repeated again that he believed the civilians that live in this territory are being returned to their native homeland as part of the annexation of these 4 Ukrainian regions in order to justify that this isn't any kind of attempt to reclaim new territory. It's simply the natural order of things for Russia to be in charge of these people in Ukraine's east. He emphasized that these people would need to be welcomed into Russia and they would need to be provided with economic opportunities to contribute and also benefit from Russia. Of course, after a year of the so-called special military operation and after nearly a decade of fighting in general, there's a lot of destruction in these areas, and the Russian president wanted it to be Russian companies and Russian businesses being sent to help. He also suggested there would need to be a lot of infrastructure development in these areas in order to rebuild it to a place which could be proud of its economy and proud of its social services, in order, of course, to try and make it clear that this is not a mistake for these people to be part of Russia, but actually the best thing for them. He thanked the residents for, quote, voting in those referendums to join Russia. He said that that was the right decision and it showed that they believed Russia was the future for them. In general, the tone of the speech with regard to these regions and Russia in general was optimistic and forward-looking, a departure away from the motivations of the special military operation for most of it, and in fact looking looking forward to what comes next. Here's the Russian president on the Donbass region.
Мы уже начали и будем наращивать масштабную программу социально-экономического восстановления и развития этих новых субъектов Федерации. Речь в том числе о том, чтобы возродить предприятия и рабочие места. Порты Азовского моря, которое вновь стало внутренним морем России. Построить новые современные дороги, как мы это делали в Крыму, который получил теперь надежную сухопутную связь со всей Россией.
Now, arguably, none of these statements were new, but what was new was left to the very end of the 2-hour speech, which is that Russia is from now on suspending its cooperation with the New START treaty. It's the last nuclear weapons treaty between the United States and Russia. It means that Russia will no longer be obliged to have a limit on its nuclear warheads. And with that, the Russian president was in effect laying down to the United States that he is willing to break the current balance between the two major nuclear powers in the world to try to emphasize that he believes the US has gone too far in supplying weapons to Ukraine. He also said if the US starts testing its nuclear weapons, Russia will as well.
Oh, thanks for that. Stuart Smith reporting live to us there from Moscow.